Hi, my name is Chris McAllister. Welcome to the SightShift Podcast. If you've ever found yourself in that tense place of leadership where big goals collide with deep conviction, there's an old word for that. It's called wilderness. And when you're in the wilderness, in the uncertainty, you're in a beautiful place because that's where you can find ancient wisdom. For ambitious, faith-driven leaders, I want you to know there's a way forward and you're not a bad leader to be where you are. We're going to help you in this podcast take all of those moments and use them to make culture your edge in your team, in your organization, in your family.
Well, welcome in once again to the SightShift Podcast. So glad you are here to join us. He's Chris, I'm Mark, and we're in this, that's SightShift, we're in this journey of working through the content from the latest book, Make Culture Your Edge. If you've been with us before, you've heard me say this. If you're joining us for the first time, this will be the first time. Get your copy, go to Amazon, or go to makecultureyouredge.com, pick up a book, and follow along with us. We'll be tracking through the book through this series, but we aren't just giving you the content that's in the book. We're peeling back the layers. We're going a little bit deeper. Some content that didn't make it into the book, some stories from both Chris's world and my world. So get your copy and keep coming back as we journey through Make Culture Your Edge.
And can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Leave a review on Amazon. That's like my favorite thing.
The reviews?
I mean, it's weird. Maybe it shouldn't be, but like, they just make me feel amazing. And thankfully, the crappy ones don't make me feel bad. That's just part of it.
It's part of it. It's all feedback.
Yeah, it's all feedback.
Right, exactly. Okay, so last time we introduced this idea of faith, hope, and love as the three pillars, the light side, so to speak, of culture. This time we're going to peek behind the curtain to the other side of the coin, the dark side, as you know, I like to kind of describe this. We're going to look at the three tension points that correlate with each of those three pillars. But before we do, I thought maybe I would share a story.
Cool.
That's the equivalent of the Biosphere 2 story that you write about in the book. Because I've not had a chance to visit Biosphere 2, I have a different version. So as you know this, every spring, late winter, early spring, we end up with a greenhouse right now it's in our dining room because that's the best spot for it. As my wife is planting little seeds that become seedlings that will eventually get out into the garden. Tomatoes and peppers, cilantro, lettuce, all kinds of things. And like
lunch comments coming again.
It's
because of when we record this.
Right, exactly. So if you hear a stomach growl, that's his. We over the years, we've learned and I can't say perfected, but we're continuing to improve the process of going from seed to seedling to eventually out in the garden to become food for us to eat in the summer harvest. And my wife loves this part. She loves the planting, the organizing, and the labeling, and then the tending to these little seedlings as they pop up. It's ideal condition. The soil is ideal. The moisture is ideal. The lighting is on a timer, and it's programmed to be ideal. The temperature is controlled because it's inside. It's all ideal conditions. But because it's all ideal conditions, without some tension, they will be set up to fail once they leave those ideal conditions and end up outside. And so we have to simulate the outside world with certain things. And one of the things that when I first saw my wife do this and read and understood, it was just the weirdest thing because it was described like you would describe interacting with a pet. You have to pet the pet.
Yeah.
You have to show the dog or the cat some love. We have to show these plants some love by literally petting them, rubbing our hands across these young seedlings to simulate wind. because in the process of simulating that wind, it fosters some strength through the stalk and the core that becomes the base for the plant to be stronger and healthier in the real world, out into the garden once it gets transplanted. And there are other things that we do, but that one stuck out to me, like without the wind, as soon as we take them outside, they're set up to fail. They leave these ideal conditions and they're not strong enough to withstand the tension, the stress that comes from the outside conditions, the quote unquote reality conditions. And so we have to simulate the wind on a regular basis just to help foster their strength. It's so weird, right? It would seem on one hand to be counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And yet it's the system. When you observe the system of how things grow and strengthen, it's totally in line with that system.
Man, okay, so hold up. I'm going to buy plantpetting.com for wealthy people that can't have their it's so fascinating because you have to simulate the stressors that strengthen it.
Right.
And we all, I mean, that story has application for days.
Right, exactly. And the it's my version of the biosphere story that you tell in the book. But it's a way to suggest that the stress, the wind, the tension does not have to be a bad thing, so to speak, something to be avoided. In fact, it's something to lean into and to cooperate with, because that's where the strength of the thing, in this case the seedling, or the parlay into the topic here, the culture, it's where the strength of the culture ultimately comes from.
Right on. And that's the thing that everybody's trying to run from and avoid or band-aid over with all of their energy. And yet it is the thing that's going to make the plant, the culture stronger.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So let me just introduce these tension points that correlate with faith, hope, and love. And then we'll spend some time teasing out each of them today. And then in future episodes, we'll do a double click on each of these individual tension points and go deeper.
Cool.
So the opposite, the dark side, so to speak, of the faith, hope, and love is confusion, resistance, and conflict. When faith is not there, when there's doubt or where there's something that's unclear, the evidence of that is confusion. When change isn't happening in the way that we want it to happen, or when there isn't hope that we're going to be okay, that we're going to find a way, there's resistance. Rather than leaning in, there's pushback and resistance. And then, of course, when there isn't love, when there isn't deepening connection, and evidence of that is conflict.
Every time.
Yeah. So I wonder maybe if we could start with this. The seedling story, the biosphere, those are fun stories, but I can see somebody saying, okay, but the reality is I've got all kinds of tension in my organization, and I feel like I have to address it, I have to overcome it, or I have to make it go away. All these reactions that I think if we were to dig into it a little bit further, is seeing these tension points as a threat rather than something to cooperate with. What does it look like? What does it look like when these tension points are coming at us in an organizational cultural context and we respond as if they're threats to be dealt with?
Yeah. I mean, you share a vision in a meeting and there's pushback and protest against it. And so, that's a tension point, right? And most people, most leaders without awareness, out of that insecurity are perceiving that falsely. They're perceiving that as a threat. And of course, there are situations where people are coming at you because they're trying to take you down. But for most situations, that's not what's going on. In some of the bigger companies we work with where people would be that Machiavellian, usually they're the one that's smiling at you the most, because they got that knife coming in your back. But no, it's just like, okay, so this is a moment that I'm sharing direction and vision, and now there's protest or pushback, and then I take that as something that is a threat to me. Like, that is the moment that you are going to build culture or you're going to ruin it. And what most leaders aren't doing is knowing how to recognize the moment and then know what to do with it. So we're trying to highlight it's these tension moments. It can be in a situation where you are talking to your teenager and you're processing with them the next stage of their evolution and where they're at and the system that needs to be in place for their freedom on the weekends or whatever, right? And then you get that resistance to it. And then you power up and you try to just get them to conform rather than recognizing and welcoming this is a culture building moment. And yeah, you could play out 10,000 of those.
Yeah. The other thing I've heard you say often is that when a leader encounters tension, there's a doubling down, so to speak, of the thing inside the culture that's the most important to that leader.
Yeah.
Which I think then can lead to the wrong response or not the best response, even if it's not perceiving it as a threat, recognizing it as an opportunity. The response is doubling down on, well, we just need to have more fun.
Yeah.
Or we just need to go on a retreat together, or we just need to offer a better break room experience or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, whatever the leader is trying to do, if they think the culture is problematic, in trouble, drifting, or even just good and they want to make it great, they're going to what they know. I mean, that's what we all do. We go to what we know. And so then they're trying to prop it up. And it typically comes out of something that has influenced them in the past, that is how they think about what a healthy culture means. So it's really funny to do this. Like, and man, we've got to remember to do this at the events. I forgot at our last event, but just ask about, when's the best and worst you've seen culture?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna come at it from their best and worst experience based on what they value.
Yep.
So I'm going to value cultures that allowed me to innovate and perform and achieve. And I never, if you ask me like, what's the best culture, I'm never coming at that from a place of, well, we went on this long road trip and I value that. It's not that I don't value that, but for me, I start off with indexing around how I'm wired up.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah, for me, it's clarity around where we're going, getting into the details, or like the importance of connection.
Yeah.
I think back to my corporate days, and the bar that I used, or the measuring stick that I used to evaluate leadership, did not have anything to do with innovation and taking risk and creativity. It was other factors.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at these leaders thinking, well, they don't lead well
because
they didn't lead the way I do. And I didn't experience their leadership as like complementary and culturally complementary. I was looking for the things that I valued the most and I wasn't finding them. Then it's like, well, swipe left on that leader.
Wouldn't it be great if you could pick your leader that way?
Right. There might be an app for that.
There's gotta be. Dang it. I need another URL to purchase. I mean, I've actually never thought about this till sitting here, but most of my leadership experience has been, I'm the primary leader and I'm kind of making something out of nothing, or I'm turning something around. The one time I was in a larger environment, it wasn't like extremely narcissistic, like I'm terrible, but there was a lot of insecurity. Dark Chris showed up, and it was like I didn't really think through it in I've got to get all the power, but I've got to be the leader I've got to be, so I have the freedom to do what needs to be done so that this organization can persevere and prevail. And I don't know why, man, just talking about it, I pictured myself in an organization where there's like an office staff of 5,000 and Chris now walks in the door and goes, okay, I'm here to serve. I'm here to impact more than lead for my own validation. But if I were super tired or angry or lonely, that insecure part of me that leads for validation, or definitely a couple decades ago, here's how he's walking in the building. This is my office now, and how do I play a solo game and let people think it's a team game to win my way to where I want to be? You know, and I say that so you'll stop listening and go, "Ooh, I don't need to listen to that guy." No, because I think I don't know this from working with them. There are a lot of like wirings like that get to these top places.
Yeah.
And man, like crazy that this is not talked about more.
Yeah.
You know, because it has this impact on culture.
That takes me back to the last series we did on Lead for Impact, right? And the motive behind what you're doing, the ability to feign empathy or feign care to be able to get what you want. Like you and I talk about this all the time, but it's worth reminding people, what's the motive?
Yeah.
You know, in that moment that you're describing, Dark Chris, a couple decades ago, the motive wasn't about serving and how do we, it was how do I, but come across making it look like it's a we.
Yeah.
And, you know, the activity, the actions maybe today could be very similar to what you did back then. Could be. Probably some that would be different. But it's really the underlying motive.
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And in that insecurity, and of course there were moments where it could have been altruistic. We're just saying 51% or greater. A lot of it was insecurely driven. I'm not going to recognize the tension points of conflict and resistance and confusion as any other thing other than a threat.
Yeah.
And so when you're stuck in that pattern and you are threat responsive, you miss these opportunities to build culture. And it's powerful because when the flip happens and you're like, oh, these aren't things that are a threat to me. This is a neon sign. Hey, it's just a big signal with an exclamation mark around it. Pay attention to this moment.
Yeah.
How you lead through this moment is going to have a lasting impact on this culture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's worth reminding, I think, ourselves and listeners, viewers, that the big audacious thing that we were talking about last time is still in play. You can have a great culture. You don't have to settle for just good.
Yeah.
You don't even have to settle for today's version of great. Wherever you are on the spectrum, the audacious thing that we're positing to you is you can have a great culture. But it requires you to be great in those moments when you need to access your greatness and see these things not as threats, but as clues, signals, data, opportunities, wind and stress to the seedling of the culture, opportunities to grow.
And as much as you think you because I hear leaders say this sometimes, like, I could do it better than anybody else on my team. And the reality is they probably can right now. But what they're doing is not exposing their team to the right amount of wind that allows them to mistake their way into that growth because they are so threatened by these tension points. And, you know, when that fades away and you're not threatened, okay, now I need to build the culture. And it can't be that good.
Yeah. Can I share a story?
I would love it.
This is a bit of a longer one. So I'm connected to a young leader, close with this young leader. In today's HR language, emerging leader, high potential to the business owner. You would appreciate this. He thinks like an owner. He was in and around an organization for a long time. And because of his proximity and our friendship, I had proximity to the organization too. And watched the organization for a long time be great. And then it started to shift. And he was noticing the shift and calling out some areas for where he thought the leader needed to address the things that were slipping, the things that were drifting, some inconsistencies. And I know he's got an activist streak in him around justice. So he was experiencing some of these things as an injustice, and finally was like, look, in my position and the voice and the influence I have, I need to bring these to the leader's attention. He was expressing some confusion, was concerned about some resistance that he was seeing. He was mentioning some conflict that is bubbling under the surface. And unfortunately, the leader completely interpreted all of those as threats, and in the end interpreted him as a threat, and she fired him. And it was devastating for him, devastating for me as I'm walking through this with him, trying to be the friend, but also be the advisor and a bit of a counselor. And because he was so connected and did so well in this organization, after that, a little bit during, some of his peers, colleagues, other team members knew what he was doing, pushing back, expressing some concerns, but then he just got fired. They walked him out that same day, and there was nothing ever said.
Crazy.
And so then team members are coming back to him like, where'd you go? You were supposed to be here today and you're not here, or you're supposed to do this and you weren't around. Like, what happened? And customers started to reach out to him and express support for him, but also confusion around what happened. And I'm so encouraged by the growth that he's experiencing and walking through this. Here's beyond just that. Here's the tie-in. Because his connection, and because I'm still able to see the organization through his eyes, the leader there and the culture is on this tension treadmill. With his firing specifically, there's no understanding of what happened. So there's all kinds of confusion between the staff members and the customers. And he was in a very customer-facing role. So like it was pretty prominent and noticeable that where he isn't, he was supposed to be where he's no longer. There's confusion. There's also, as I've heard it relayed, a tremendous amount of resistance. Like, what's going on? I'm not on board with this. These changes don't make sense to me. It's not clear. So the confusion is leading to resistance. Where are we going? I am not confident we're going to be able to find a way, is like the underlying emotion. And then the amount of conflict that is simmering under the surface and now starting to come to the surface. Like, I'm hearing about it, and I'm not part of the organization. I'm not a customer. I'm not an employee. I'm multiple ripples or circles disconnected, and I'm hearing about the conflict. And I'm also watching from a distance. I'm watching how the leader is leading through this, and it is, don't look over here at really what's going on. Look over here at the fun, the party, the veneer. I was describing it to somebody yesterday. The veneer that is being put over the confusion, the resistance, the conflict. It's almost so thin, it's literally see-through. But the perception is we need to veneer over the tension and just come back to everything's good. This is great.
Nothing to see here.
There's nothing to see here. I've used the Wizard of Oz analogy, right? The great Wizard of Oz is now found out to be this squirrely, shriveled up old man behind the curtain. But we're still playing the game that the great Wizard of Oz is the great Wizard of Oz. It's really sad, Chris. It's really sad. And I feel bad for the people that are still in the organization, the customers, the team members. My friend, I think, is the lucky one because he's out and he's moving on. But the problems are still there. They're so prominent on display, and the leader's just refusing to address them.
And that's making it all so much worse than they can imagine.
That's right.
And you know what's crazy to me is like, and maybe this episode is just dedicated to the idea of tension points.
Yes.
And we can hit them, next time. But the whole reality of like, all of the time this business has spent building a brand, all of the energy to build customer relationships, and like, you think you can make these moves and miss these tension points and you're fine, you are so sorely misguided. Because I'm thinking of John Maxwell's analogy about like change in the pocket. When you make these kind of moves, when everybody's there and they're like, "Where's Bill?" and something shady happened and you can't lead through that, and you're like, "Don't look over there, look over here.
Yep.
Watch the clowns."
Yep.
You lose that credibility. You lose that change in your pocket, and then when you need it, you got nothing to cash in.
Yep.
And you look up one day and you're like, "How did we get here?"
Yep.
Because there were like 4 or 5 defining moments that you missed and you led through poorly because you were threatened by the confusion, resistance, or conflict. And if you could just flip a switch in your brain and be like, sweet. Now, I know it's not that easy. I mean, all of our work is about helping leaders move from leading for validation to impact, getting a secure identity. You get a secure identity, those things they don't rock you to your core. They can still hurt, but they don't rock you to your core.
Yep.
But if you can get excited about it and go, now we get to build culture, the advantage is all in your court for where you want to go.
Yep. And that's an extreme story.
Yeah.
But it's one that plays out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's one that it's preventable. It didn't have to get to there. Just like in your organization, your team, your family, it doesn't have to be a threat.
Yeah.
It can be data. It can be a clue and a signal. It can be information to pay attention to of, oh, there's work for me to do. Culture, what's the statement in the book? Culture happens with or without you.
Yeah.
So make the culture your edge. Make the culture great, but it requires the leader to go first, to recognize what's in front of you, and to not see it as a threat, but see it as an opportunity.
Yeah. And you know, if we could give you this thought to chew on, because it is that opportunity, you don't have to stress out about like,
what needs to be
what
done.
do I need to do?
Yeah.
It's giving you
Yeah.
the direction and the signal,
Yeah.
like Mark said.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I mean, honestly, so many, but I wonder if they fit better in when we start talking through the 3 specific tension points. And just today is that encouragement to don't waste that moment and miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as I was thinking about closing this episode, it's with, of course, go buy the book, makecultureyouredge.com, sightshift.com, SIGHT shift.com, as a next step to learn more. But as like a practical application, the next time you encounter a tension moment, confusion, resistance, or some conflict, some conflict that isn't necessary, or potentially it's unhealthy conflict, rather than immediately react as if it's a threat, what if you could just get curious and recognize that it's an opportunity for where the culture needs some work, needs some of your tending as the master culture gardener to be able to strengthen based on the information that is surfacing. What if you could see those not as a threat, but as an opportunity? There's the practical application with which we'll close today's episode.
Maybe in a meeting, when that tension moment comes up and you know you need to take action, you just say out loud, I need to pet this plant, and see what happens. No, don't do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as always, grateful, excited that you are listening, you're tuning in, and that you're traveling through this content with us, because we do believe culture can be your edge and culture can be great if it's on purpose, if we're paying attention to the tension points. And like we said, next time we're going to double click on confusion, and we're going to drill down into 3 specific risk factors that you can pay attention to as symptoms, more clear symptoms for where there is confusion, or what happens when the confusion isn't addressed, and how these risks can play out in your culture. That's where we're going next. So Without further ado, he's Chris, I'm Mark. This is the SightShift Podcast. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for being with us on the SightShift Podcast. I hope in some way we've encouraged you to face, lean into, and become aware of the moments that represent so much transformation possibility. If you want more, you can always go to SightShift, SIGHT, shift.com, and learn to make culture your edge.